So if you spread your legs from east to west, there's always that third leg there that helps to keep you from falling down.
Going south.
Right.
Welcome back to the Deck Kings.
Welcome back to the Deck Kings. Hey, in deck, size matters.
It does.
It does.
You can charge more for it, especially if you have fancy features with it. So decks are definitely the way to go because that's where you guys end up. Welcome to the Small Business Safari, where I help guide you to avoid those traps, pitfalls, and dangers that lurk when navigating the wild world of small business ownership. I'll share those gold nuggets of information and invite guests to help accelerate your ascent to that mountaintop of success. It's a jungle out there, and I want to help you traverse through the levels of owning your own business that can get you bogged down and distract you from hitting your own personal and professional goals. So strap in, adventure team, and let's take a ride through the safari and get you to the mountaintop. Hey everybody, it's Chris and Alan again, and we are excited to be in studio because
You're more excited than normal.
I am more excited than normal. Well, because we've been all jacked up getting ready for this episode. We've got some great guys who've come on the podcast with us. John Gwaltney and Bryan Miller from Outback Deck here in Atlanta. If I had a little cheers reel, I would say cheers. But anyway, we'll say cheers, guys.
Cheers with our
Salud.
crappy beer, fellas.
Yeah,
we only
thanks.
brought out the
Thanks
worst for
the
you.
beer.
So since this is on radio land or podcast land, I could tell everybody this is a special monk brewed Belgian beer,
But you'd be lying.
but I would be lying.
Yeah.
So we can't. do
Yeah,
that.
Chris tells me, come on over. I got the beer covered. And it's a fridge full of garbage.
I think Natty Light for a lot of us takes us back to.
It
where
is
we started.
nostalgic.
It
Yes.
is. So we're back with Natty Lights because that's all we were left with in the fridge here at the office.
Thanks for thinking
Well,
of us.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
appreciate you being,
Thanks, John.
we appreciate you being prepared.
Yeah, other people, I don't know. Obviously you guys have a good relationship, but I've seen them bring top shelf bourbon. I mean, I've seen them lay out a red carpet before.
Okay, we're
And-
out. We're out.
Yeah.
I know it.
And I've never seen two guys give you more crap.
yeah.
I want to be on a foursome
All right.
with this
You-
table right
you do
now.
want to be in a force.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. So,
Yeah.
so who are they? So instead of me introducing you, why don't you guys introduce yourselves? John, who the hell are you?
Thanks. Yeah. John Gwaltney. I am one half of the partnership of Outback Deck, and I call South Florida home, a little town called Venice, Florida. And I spent most of my childhood there and graduated high school, went to the Army, spent 4 years in the Army.
Thank you for service.
That's right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And after that, spent a little time in Tallahassee, Florida, and figuring out what I want to do with my life. Ended up in Atlanta in 2001, couple months before 9/11. So I always remember that. And in 2004, decided to get into the construction field. Started a company called Nehemiah Exteriors. Had been doing some insurance claims business and saw a need. Thought I might be able to do that. And slowly but surely got my first client, put my first house of siding in, put my first house of windows in, put my first gutter ledger on, and then took it right on through until Bryan and I met at a little networking group called Consulta Home Pro.
I've heard of that one.
Hmm.
So when you first started, John, when somebody say, "Hey, can you do this?" was your answer always absolutely?
I
bet.
I said yes to a lot, but I did learn early that if I didn't know, I would say I would tell them that, or I would say no. So there were things I would not
I'm
do.
much smarter
Wow.
than you, Chris.
Yeah.
Wait.
Because I was waiting for him to say I did my first siding job, I did my first window job, then I redid my first siding job, and he didn't.
That was my story.
I know. I figured that was just everybody's
Well,
story.
Yeah, because I would do anything to anybody at any time when I first started. Can you do that? Absolutely.
That doesn't have
Hello.
anything to do with your business.
That's right. You can see where one of us is morally grounded, the other one is not. One of us picked Nehemiah for a great Bible reference, and the other one went, which one sells more? The trusted toolbox.
That's right. That's right.
All right, so you guys met at a consulting group, but you had your own Nehemiah Exteriors.
I did, yeah.
All right, so we're gonna stop there, and now let's introduce Bryan, and let's take you up to that point too, because I love how you guys got together on this.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Bryan Miller. I'm originally an upstater from New York. And so, I grew up there, learned how to paint houses early and often with my stepdad. He was a teacher. And we built a few decks. And then I got involved in college pro painters. I played hockey and did college pro to put my way through school. And then I was a college pro district manager. So I put guys in business, painting businesses. Became a Certi Pro Painters franchisee. So I did that for a number of years, worked corporate for them, helped them start some master licenses in different parts of the globe. So I trained small business owners on how to run a paint job and how to recruit franchisees for their countries. And then, ended up here in Atlanta in the late 80s and into the early 90s, was doing some of that here and decided to really, get out of the painting business. So I sold my franchises and started a commercial painting business, which ended up with a bunch of customers, that had other things they needed done. So they started asking me, like, can you fix these bathrooms? Can you do this? Can you do that? And so sort of worked my way into remodeling that way. And stopped painting in the middle part of 2000s, 2005, 6, and really focused primarily on remodeling kitchens, baths. We built a lot of additions in West Cobb and East Cobb, and then customers started asking about deck. So we started doing deck repair and doing wood decks, inexpensive, get in, get out. But pretty quickly that sort of became there's a real business model here and nobody's really servicing that. So that's sort of how I got Outback really started. And that was in 06, 05, 06, going into 07, and the downturn happened.
Right.
And so that's sort of when deck really proved the model, right? Hey, this was good and sustainable and nobody was really spending a lot of money. Bank money dried up. And so fixing decks and doing simple deck builds was hot. People wanted to be around the house and they needed to do it, so we did it. And then joined in with Consult Home Pro, and as they say, the rest is history.
Right. We're going to get into that history because I think what was really cool about yours. Now, the name of your company in the remodeling world was something different than
Renovation Associates. Yeah.
Right. So you were Renovation Associates. You were Nehemiah Construction. Reconstruction. And when I met you and both of you guys in the same networking group, I remember the Outback deck story, and you were kind of still working on it, but yet would do everything else. And so at the time, what we know now is that you guys were both in the remodeling industry, both had successful businesses, were coming out of the downturn. By the time we met, it's probably 09,
That's right.
10. Things were starting to, we could see the light at the end of the tunnel was starting to happen after that big, deep, dark recession. But you guys both had successful remodeling businesses that you were both owners of and founders of. How could you possibly get together and start running your own business together? John.
So because of the downturn, like many people in trying to just figure out life for myself, I moved from an office back into the house, worked out of the basement, trying to cut overhead, do the things you could. And then sort of got on the other side of the downturn and said, man, I just need to get out of the house. And, was pulling my hair out, right? Successfully. And so Bryan had an office and had some office space opening up. And lo and behold, that was all of about literally a mile and a half from my house. And we didn't know. So we talked a little bit. I worked it out. And then I ended up moving into the office that he had. And then,
but at that point, your businesses were still separate.
Still separate.
Okay. Yeah, we didn't have an intent at all. We had not talked about partnership or anything like that. We'd become friends through the networking agency, and we had traded some leads. Still competed in sort of a deck and maybe a little bit of exterior remodeling. Not really hard competition. Just we realized we had gone up against some stuff with each other. And anyway, it was probably 3 months after I moved in. Bryan was playing adult hockey. He referenced playing hockey in college. He continued to play that. And I'll let you tell that quick story. Lo and behold, one night I got a phone call saying, I'm in the hospital.
All right, let's tell that story. 'Cause
So,
we're gonna
yeah,
make
so-
that one graphic.
yeah, so, we're sitting around here with, here, I'll help the,
Ooh, I'm with you.
yeah, so
With
we're
those
sitting around having a couple of beers, doing the podcast and so we were playing, beer league hockey. In this case, it was a level, so it's a little bit higher than beer league. And I had been a goaltender through high school and college but I decided to get in shape. I wanted to play defense. So I got all new equipment. I was playing defense and we're toward the end of the game. And we were up some ungodly 7-1 or 8-1 or something. And so with face off, puck comes back between the two defenders. I go to get it. And some jackweed comes sliding on his gut, trying to poke check the puck into the net. Well, I'm turning to go left around behind the net. All my weight was on my left foot. He caught my right foot and skate in his jersey and went all the way to the boards. And my right leg went that way. I'm pointing to east, and then my left leg went with me to the west and spiral fractured my leg, broke it clean in half, 13.5 inches.
Yep. And if that's not graphic enough,
Oh,
just
good
imagine trying
Lord.
to spread your legs from New York to California.
That's
They just don't
correct.
make it. Yeah.
Only Chris would do that. Only Chris would make that analogy. He has the 3-legged stool though, right? So if you spread your legs from east to west, there's always that third leg there that helps to keep you from falling down.
Going
Right.
south.
Right?
Welcome back to the Deck Kings.
Yeah. Welcome back to the Deck Kings. Hey, in deck, size matters.
It does.
It does.
You can charge more for it, especially if you have fancy features with it. So decks are definitely the way to go because that's where you guys ended up.
So if I'm hearing this correctly, they didn't actually think about it and talk to some other people and, maybe a partnership would be good for my business. He just was screwed. And there was a guy in the same building that could help him out.
We don't use screws in deck. We use hidden fasteners.
Hidden fasteners.
Hidden fasteners.
Did you
No, actually,
study hidden fasteners when you got your MBA in screws?
So it's not an MBA, it was a master's in mechanical engineering. Please don't downgrade what I did.
I'm sorry, but it was still in screws though,
It was
wasn't it?
screws,
Yeah,
right, yes.
that's what screws.
No, so it's interesting that you reference that because one of the things that happened, we were standing at the home show. It's probably the second one that we did when we were both there. We had built a ridiculous deck on top of the whole house. And we were having a conversation and John was like, hey, I want you to read this article. And there was an article in, I don't know if it's a Qualified Remodeler or something like that. And it was about these two window guys in downtown Philadelphia. And the one guy, he had a business about 3 blocks from the other guy. And the one guy could sell like there was no tomorrow, but his production side was terrible. They absolutely sucked wind. He couldn't get good installers. So he had this huge backlog. He couldn't get anything done. The other guy couldn't sell to save his soul, but he had great installers and anything he sold was always top shelf, perfect. Everybody loved it. Well, apparently they were out at a bar or somewhere together and they started kind of connecting. And so these two guys decided to merge the businesses. The one guy was $1.5 million, $2 million. The other guy was similar. And that business went from 4 million to like $30 million in like 4 years.
So the story you guys read was 2 guys decided to get together and together they were able to grow from whatever.
Yeah,
Right,
their skills complement
Yeah,
rather than
so the
overlap.
one guy
Yeah.
had a lot of strengths in some areas and weaknesses in others and vice versa. And so when we had been talking about that, but that wasn't the impetus to push everything together. So after all this stuff happened, I was on my back for 4 months. John was like, hey, you got a decent backlog. Like, you want me to just help you manage production? Like I can make sure your project management is going well and doing all kinds of good stuff. And I'm like, sure.
So if I got that right, what you said was John planted the seed about, hey, we should join together. And you went out there and snapped your leg in 35 different places and left it all over the ice so you guys could get together.
Or John could have pulled a Tanya Harding on him. He didn't know about
Maybe
it.
he did send the assassin out. That's right.
I'm short $500 because of another guy, right?
But
You missed the whole part about me laying on my back, Chris. I thought for sure that's where you were going with
a
that.
little compassion. Well, I'll get to the back part in a minute. But no, so when he first said, hey, do you want me to start picking that up? Was there any ounce of, dude, this guy's about to steal my business. I'm not going to let that happen. Or was it, this guy is so genuine and I've known him enough that I really need him and I want him to help me?
Yeah, no, I don't think there was ever any of that. I think because we had started the conversation about about that other stuff. And we had not at that point made any plan to merge the businesses, but it was pretty clear that, when John would do a siding or a window job, I would lose those jobs to him almost every time. Over $200, $300, $400, right? And if we were doing deck and we came up, he would lose that job to me most of the time, over $500, $400, $300. And so, I think there was enough synergy in how we thought about things and how we approached the business, and just the conversations that we had. I mean, neither of us are superficial kind of guys. So it's not the way we do life and do relationships. So we had a pretty good, solid relationship that had some good foundation already just from being friends.
Yeah.
So when we would go out and have a cocktail or whatever, just hang out, it wasn't like, we learned pretty quickly how to do life together and how to care about each other, and really, and we were trying to help each other, right? So it wasn't like some superficial thing. So I think when it was natural for me to receive help from him, the same as it was for him to offer help.
Yeah.
Right. So, remember that a pretty good chunk of our background in our life was growing up as pastor kids. Right. So, we kind of grew up in an environment where serving people was a big deal. And we do that every day in our business and our company. So for us to live that out, for him to do that for me, was a normal, natural thing for him. For a lot of people, that may be weird, but that's the way it was.
So it's not weird. And that's why I was waiting for this to come up. And I didn't tell Alan about your background, but Alan is also a pastor kid.
Sure.
So good news, guys, is I'm here to corrupt the shit out of you. And here I am.
You almost made me spit out my beer.
Newsflash, we don't need any help.
So we talk about partnerships a lot,
right,
in our podcast. And so many people have real challenges with it. I'd love to hear some advice on, it sounds like you were talking about it a little bit. It doesn't sound like you knew each other really that long. And yet a circumstance forced you together. What are some of the things that you've learned? What are some tips you can pass on to people about the quality of a partnership? One is clearly common core values,
right,
which you guys just know.
Yeah.
100% what your common core values are. But what else can you tell people about the success of a partnership?
Well, in the early stages, first of all, it was organic, right? So this sort of situation occurred, and then sort of 6 months into this, we really sort of started looking at it because we had really helped one another. I had helped him in that situation, but he also helped me with learning how to sell a little bit better. Brian's a fantastic sales guy, and I was an average sales guy. And just, hey, if you could do this and do this, and I started selling more. So that piece was just, we were helping each other, and that was sort of organic. But we quickly invited some mentors into our life and said, hey, we're thinking about doing this. What would could you walk us through with it? So we had sort of two pieces that we did. One was sort of a professional, and maybe even a little bit of a spiritual mentor that just sort of said, hey, if you're thinking about doing this, let's do some, how are you? Who are you? Let's really dig in about your personality. Let's figure out, what does that mean? We did a personality test. We really looked at it from can we even work together? Like, we can be friends, but can we really work together standpoint? And then the other part was, we quickly sought out an attorney, and we were both really committed. Our mentor also was committed to that. Hey, let's walk through, what does it mean? Because part of it is we did have two successful businesses. And if we got into this and decided, hey, this really isn't for us, we wanted an exit strategy. How do we do it? And so for sure, my advice would be those two things, right? Don't go at it alone. Don't be naive and think we're great together and he's this and that's true. But after a couple years, that can wear off pretty quickly.
Talk about dropping a gold nugget. Those two right there. Nobody wants to talk about, hey, I want to figure out how we're going to break up in the beginning. But if you do that, it establishes guidelines, boundaries, and it allows you guys a little more self-reflection so you can work better together. Yep. And the partnerships I've seen blow up have never been like that. It's always like, oh, I've got this great new shiny object. You got this great new shiny object. We can do this together. We'll do it. And we'll make $30 million a year all of a sudden. And boom, it completely implodes because they weren't prepared like you guys were. That's key.
I think there's the other side too, is, that's sort of the kind of the business side, but I think there's another whole part to our relationship that we really spent time looking at. And so we made some really clear and defined decisions and choices. The first thing is, we've decided that when we push the business together, that we would defer to the other guy if he had a stronger feeling about it than I did. So if we were disagreeing, I would choose John over myself.
You check the
Every
ego, check
single
the
time.
ego
Check
at the
the
door.
ego at the door.
Yeah.
And we just decided that we would not allow the relationship and the business to falter because we had a simple disagreement about something. So, and we have lived that out for 12 years. Like it is the one thing, the one thread that runs all the way through. And even as we've grown the business, I ran production for a while. Now he's kind of over production. He did sales for a while. I'm over sales. We've kind of moved the pieces a little bit and put ourselves in positions where, hey, we need a little change over there. Let's flip, right? And when we did that stuff, we made the decision, even though he was doing it before, he would defer to me for those decisions now that I was running that part of the business, and I would defer to him for those decisions. And that one key decision that we made has probably allowed us to withstand some of the pressure and the other things that have come at the company and come at us as owners over the decade plus that we've been doing this together, because it's easier when you know that the business comes second, that the relationship comes first. I don't like to use the analogy that much that it's like a marriage, but at the end of the day, if you're going to have a successful partnership, my belief is foundationally the relationship has to come first. So you need to know what the boundaries are around that, and you need to define those things together. And then you need to stand on that always and forever, because if you don't do that, it will fall apart.
So that means you guys have to have some frank conversation, straight talk, with a phrase from the corporate world that I came from. You can't be passive aggressive. You got to make sure you're doing it, because you're right. I mean, a lot of us running small businesses, there's pressures every day, right? I wake up every day going, all right, which problems am I solving today? Here we go. And you're going to persevere, you're going to go through it, you're going to stay optimistic. But now you have somebody else with you that you're trying to stay in lockstep with and be with. And so you brought that up. You get all those pressures, and you talked about that. Has there ever been that time where you're like, okay, man, I think this is time to invoke the blow it up, pill cause, we're done?
I mean, like when we were still at York Place, we were having a discussion. We had like a little table out in what was the living room at the time in front of the fireplace. And I don't know, I said something and really set John off. And he like got up and pushed the chair back and was like, I get it. I can't deal with you right now. I got to get out. And he just walked out. And I was like, what the heck, you know?
Which is totally out of character.
Yeah, dude, I don't know what button I pushed in. So he came back in it, but he came back and just goes, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt that you don't understand how you just said that to me and the tone that was there and that. So let me explain. And so we talked it through, and I was like, wow, man, I really apologize. I did not intentionally.
That's great.
But that's the deal, right? Like
That's unbelievable. Super self-aware. And again, checking egos at the door, which is, again, Chris, why you're a sole proprietor.
Exactly. There's no way in hell I'll have a partner. There's no way in hell I'll be a pastor's kid. There's no way in hell I'm going to make it up to where you guys are going. I'm trying hard. I'm going to get there one day, but
we'll get you there.
Yeah, but no, I think it's
not. There's that.
We'll be a piece.
But he had something to add. So
I will add this. As time went on, right, and I mentioned a mentor. If you're would encourage anybody to have a coach. We basically had coaches over the last 12 years. We have 2 currently. And one of those guys, we for lack of a better reason, we just called the hot list, right? He called me, hey, what's on your hot list? He called Bryan, hey, what's on your hot list? And we dealt with the hot list with a third party, right? And so about once a quarter, we sat down and talked through it. Some of those were emotional, whatever the issue was. Some of them was just pragmatic about the business. Hey, how are we going to deal with those? And a lot of times, the one thing about partnership is you gotta be aware of the money, right? You wouldn't want to act like that can't become an issue, because it becomes the issue if you're not careful. So always coming back to checking on the money. What are we doing? How are we doing it? Make sure we know the books, make sure we understand the books, make sure we got some guidance there. So
I think the partnership part is great, and how you guys have navigated that. You've dropped some absolute huge gold nuggets. The other thing I want to talk about in the business is, from what I remember and what I know, and then what we talked about before the podcast, what I knew in the beginning was Bryan had a software and an idea coming from his franchise head and his franchise world to make Outback Deck a more repeatable process and make it a more easy sales up front and to make it move. But at the time, Bryan was still doing bathrooms, kitchens, and would compete with you, John, against in siding and windows. And you at the time were bathrooms, not necessarily too many, but you try to stick to the exteriors. As you guys have formed your partnership and worked, you've really worked on the niches, and the niches bring the riches. You keep bringing that up all the time. I've heard that from you guys. Talk how you guys, where you started in the scope of work you would do and where you are today.
Yeah, I think that also it's a really good segue, because out of the riches of our relationship and the commitments that we made to each other, we were able to look at the business differently. So it would be easy for me to look at John and say, hey man, I can sell bathroom jobs at 60% gross profit and we can kill it. So I'm not going to let you stab that in the heart. And he could look at me and go, hey man, we can sell windows at 70% gross profit and we're not going to stab that in the heart. And it would be easy for me to look at it and go, hey, I started Outback, so this, that, right? It's easy to do those things. But it's different if you step back and pull your own personal stuff out of it and you just look at it for what it is. It's a business. What's the purpose of the business? Serve people well. How do we do that? We do that through the core values. What's the other purpose? Make money. Okay, what's the profit engine that drives the business? Jim Collins, Good to Great. Every business has a hedgehog concept. What is it in our company? So what we did is we spent the first probably 3 years funneling everything down to where are we making money. Initially, when we put the business together, it was like, we need to expand everything and get enough revenue in here to start hiring people and do what we decided we wanted to do, which was try to scale the business. But then you begin to learn that unless you follow one course until successful, focus. F.O.C.U.S, follow one course until successful. Unless you do that, it really is super difficult to gain any traction and move to scale. Your staff, your people, everyone you bring around you, you need to remember they don't have your entrepreneurial brain. It's not their business. They don't have the same bandwidth you have. They don't care the way you care. They won't see it that way. So because we both believed in what we were trying to do, we sort of started looking at the business and we put everything on the whiteboard, like we did a Vulcan mind meld or whatever you want to call it, right? We put it all up there. We kind of looked at it and went, okay, here's what we've done over here, and here's what we've done here, and here's what we've done here. And the very first decision we had to make was to put a bullet in Nehemiah's head. That was not an easy thing for him.
With that, all right, so let's talk about
what does that mean?
right? So John started a company called Nehemiah Reconstruction, and you guys decided jointly to say, okay, it's time to fold that name.
So we
It's gotta be
didn't
hard
fold
because-
it. We sunset the brand is a better way to say that,
Sunset
right?
the brand.
We kind of squeezed it down, and we created what we call a stop doing list. And what ended up happening was we looked at what revenue is that producing at what margin. And when you measured that against everything else, it was the smallest pieces. And so we looked at each other and went, if we're going to get anywhere, we need to make some hard decisions. And he looked right at me and said, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care, because what I care about is that we can keep growing and that we get where we need to go.
It was hard, yeah, John?
Yeah, well, we had made a decision. We used a phrase called fewer better, right? That was sort of the academic side of what we were trying to do, right? Fewer better. And we made some good dollars and stuff. But what I knew is that siding took 2 weeks. There was painting involved. It was really a real struggle. We were one of James Hardy's larger contractors in the area. But when you put it up against everything else, you start looking at it, hey, what is it? The other thing was we believed outdoor living was a growing market. So we saw the opportunity and we said, hey, in deck replacement, there was already in 2012, there was already 2 million decks that needed to be replaced in Georgia, right? Well, that number is only going to
In Georgia.
in Georgia,
Just in Georgia.
right?
Now it's
They were
4
already
million
past
plus.
life expectancy, right? Wood is only made is wood was only treated to last between 15 and 20 years, right? Well, we were already beyond that. And so we knew that number. So we just saw the opportunity as well. And then we had some sage advice, which just said focus, fewer better, and get really good at process in that. And if you'll focus and do that, it means something else has to side. We knew that we would come back around and we would start doing some siding and windows again at some point, but we really needed to focus and get good at what we did. The other thing was it allowed our production team to become masters at one thing. And that was really key to what our goal was, which is a 5-star experience.
Gotcha.
So,
It's still hard as an owner to not look at the shiny objects and to give up. Yeah, but I can go do that bathroom for that really good customer. Well, was it really a good customer? And what's your margin? And well, it's going to take me 8 weeks. Yeah, well, in 8 weeks, how long does it take you guys to do a deck now on average?
4 days.
So you could have done how many decks in 8 weeks? So as I listen to you guys, you talk.
By the way, that's why Chris actually has us here, because when we told him the numbers, he almost pooped his pants.
I did, and I'm calling, and I want to hear some updates because there's a couple more things still to come. So let's keep going down that journey. So
4
you guys,
days.
Yeah.
And I've seen the pictures on their website. They're
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, these guys do amazing work. Before we went on the podcast, Bryan was showing me one of the decks. And he was like, "Oh, see this bracket? I still don't even know the name of the damn bracket." I'm like, "Oh yeah. I didn't know what the hell it was because we don't use them."
And you're a mechanical engineer.
I know. I got to look it up. I'm going to. I mean, it's just obviously you guys always bring so much value every time I talk to you. Anyway, so as you did that, you had the discipline to keep niching down. So today in your business, Outback decks are one.
Mhm.
What else will you do besides a deck?
Yeah, so the engine that drives the business is what we call deck only. So it's a synthetic deck. That would be, everybody might know that as composite material. Some people might call it Trex. But Kleenex, right? But it's a synthetic deck, whether that's composite or PVC material with some kind of a we call super low maintenance, because there's no such thing as no maintenance. So super low maintenance rail could be aluminum, could be a composite type product. Could be iron, there's cable, there's a bunch of stuff, but most of our projects deck only. And then we also look at the municipality, because the deck has to be permitted if you build it new and needs a full set of plans. It needs a site plan. There's all kinds of government stuff around that we have to do. And so that stuff all takes time. So it's easy to say a deck takes 4 days, but it takes a month to get it there.
Right.
In most municipalities, or 6 or 8 weeks for a 4-day experience for the customer. And they have to live in all of that. So they hire us, then they have to live through all that. And then we're only there for 4 or 5 days. Right. So there's that. Then we have porches. So we do all our porches done by design. So bunch of custom stuff. And we get almost all the ones that no one wants to do off the side of the mountain on Sweat Mountain. Stuff that's 35 feet in the air that has granite stone all underneath it. And we have to chisel it away and get engineers involved. And we do all that kind of stuff, 3 stories, 4 stories. And then we have a hardscape division. So we do patios, stamped concrete, poured concrete, paver, any kind of hardscape. We don't do landscaping, we do hardscape. So we've got that whole side. And then we have an underdeck division as well.
Did I see on your website, it was like a louvered patio cover that
not there yet.
It's on your website.
I know. Yeah. So
right underneath all those awesome ratings. I loved on your website how you had your Angie's List and house and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Just boom, front and center. I don't know if those are real time or if you have to update them regularly.
It's real time.
That's really freaking cool.
And it's 1 to 2 a day right now that come in that are almost all 5-star experiences. And that's really how we that is the one marker that we use to gauge success in the entire organization. So everybody in the company knows what the 5-star experience is, and everybody is driven toward the consumer having that 5-star experience. So the only rating that matters to us as an organization is, did the customer have a 5-star experience? Everything hinges around that. Right?
All right. So before we get too much in the customer experience, I want to get everybody back. As you guys first merged your company, what was total revenue and how many employees did you have at the time?
When we first merged, it was Bryan, it was John, and it was Michelle, who was our bookkeeper. And we had one project manager. I had a project manager, and Bryan had a project manager, and a couple carpenters. So pretty small group. I think probably together that first year we probably did $2.4 million.
And today, how many employees and what's your revenue today?
Yeah, so crews in the field plus staff at the office, roughly 35. Revenue total last year was right at $8 million.
So there you go. We just talked about, you guys read the article. You said, hey, these two window guys went from 4 to 30. We just went and put ourselves together and went from 3 and 2.4 now to 35. That's 35 families that you're
That's right.
impacting, which is also a very cool thing for everybody in the business. But so you guys have scaled to that point and you've gotten better at what you do in your 5-star experience. So now coming back to that, because I talk about that a lot at the Trusted Toolbox, is that I not only have I scaled, but I've gotten better. And usually it's a lot better when I'm not involved. So that's a little aside that I just heard today again.
That's self-aware.
That was self-aware.
Good
That's
job,
why I'm in here
Chris.
doing the podcast.
I'm proud
So
of you.
I'm letting them run the business. Stay away from them. They like me when I'm away. So in the 5-star experience, talk about how you were able to scale and implement this 5-star experience and actually get better at what you were doing at a grander scale with 35 people.
Yeah. So, Chris, you just said, Chris just dropped the nugget. Don't miss it. It's better when other people are doing it. So as a business owner, you need to be thinking about the most effective way for you to scale your business, and the most effective way for you to deliver the experience that you need to is to get out of the way. So, when your team does it, you feel better about that. And the customer experience is better because you don't have your hands in it. And you don't have all that stuff going on in your head from when you started and you think it should be this and that. No, you get out of the way. So the way we do that right now effectively is we have an executive team. So we have a layer of leadership. So we have a leader over sales. We have a leader over marketing. We have a leader over production. We have a leader over administration, right? We have a leader over finance. So we have a layer of leadership, and then we have bench strength that we're building in those areas. And those guys are really responsible for the day-to-day operation of the business. Now we flipped the switch on the sales, which we'll talk about later, but had we not done that, and had we kept kind of going on the trajectory, we were working collectively about 30 hours a week between the two of us. Now we're working more because we're doing some things, reinvesting in the business, trying to grow faster, right? But at the end of the day, to deliver the experience, we need to be sure that the team has control of the ship as much as possible. That doesn't mean we take our eye off the wheel, the steering wheel, right? Because when we do that, we get robbed blind, right? Be careful, right? But we need them to really run the day-to-day operation, because collectively they can do more as a team than we could ever do as a small team or on our own. And to meet the needs of the community and to really serve people well, you need to have solid team. So that's my take. Then John has more to add.
So I guess I'll speak pragmatically, like, hey, what did we do, right? Because maybe someone can glean something. We made a key hire. So if you've read the book, Who Not How, right? Hey, go find someone who can help you. And the first place that we needed some help was in production. We needed someone who had some experience in both replication, who had some experience in system, and hired a great recruiter. And they found someone outside of the industry to come in and help us begin to implement. So big key hire.
So you used a recruiter to find that hire.
That's right.
And it was somebody outside of the industry. That's pretty
right.
interesting.
Yeah.
How much did you guys have to spend on that recruiter to get this key hire? And then how much you don't have to give specifics, how much does that person you hired make?
I think we paid him like $7,000 to find him. Is that right? Back then?
Oh, maybe a little more than
That's what I thought.
that. I mean, it's a percentage, right? So it's a percentage of that. But I would say it was certainly double what Bryan just said. And there's also some ancillary fees in there. And then total comp package, when you throw insurance and everything, definitely 6 figures. Yeah.
So that's a thing that, especially when you're growing in a business and you ran it tight. You even talked about the fact that you moved into your basement just to make ends meet when things happen. And you come from that mentality. And I know you guys have not built out this lavish office and this huge customer showroom. I know you guys keep it tight. It is hard to sit there and wrap your head around the fact that I'm going to give somebody $14,000 or $10,000, 10 to 20 grand is usually the number I've been hearing, to go find somebody who's going to elevate your game. And you're like, no. I'm going to find it through networking.
No, so
And-
we actually had that conversation and it went something like this. We need to spend the money. And I said, fine, I'll go sell a job and we'll pay for it.
Yeah.
And so I looked at it and went, you know what? That's just one more of these. I'm going to go do that. You get started over there. So John went over and got that going and I went and in 2 weeks sold the job to pay for it. That's it.
And that's the way to think about it, because it's hard because, and this is something I'm actually telling this to myself because I've been told this now, is that I got to find that one key hire if I really want to find somebody who's going to help me get out of the business completely. For this
Well, and I
reason.
was thinking about it slightly differently. What would you pay in marketing expense to get whatever return from new customers? I mean, so if you invest in finding the right people, the return is.
And they say this all the time. Would you rather lose an employee or a customer? Well, all day long, right? I'll lose the customer. I need the employee if we're going to go, because our business, let's face it, it's a people business. We don't have robots that are going to build decks yet. We don't have robots that are out there and sell to a customer yet. So we have to have people to grow what we're doing. So we need the people. So you guys made that one key hire and that really elevated your game. And this person came outside of your industry.
Yeah, outside the industry from manufacturing, had some construction in their background, but came from manufacturing, Six Sigma. If you're, wearing the belts, right, which was really helpful, and also they were from out of state, so that was the other big piece. Was personally looking and just saying, I'm going to move you here. Your family's coming with you. This wasn't local. This was a big move. So, brought him in a couple of times, brought the family down. Hey, let's have dinner with your wife. We were really sincere about trying to figure out, hey, we want to make sure this is right for everybody.
And we don't really take hiring lightly. Since that first time, we pretty much realized, as goes the wife, so goes the family.
Yeah.
And so when we make a key hire at any kind of a mid to upper level, we have a couple interviews with that person and then we have dinner with the spouse involved and we talk the reality of the job and what it really takes. And we give them a chance to be in the office, get to know us as guys, and also get to know our spouses and get to know how we do things and how it works and what it is, because we expect you to be part of the family.
And that's on the executive level or
Executive and mid-level executive.
Okay.
Yeah.
what are you doing when it comes to just members of your team, folks that are going to go out and swing a hammer? Are you doing something different than what you think your competitors are doing?
Well, first of all, we have a whole core value piece that we live by, right? So trust, confidence, care, and grit. And part of that care piece is who we're going to care for. We're going to care for the customer, we're going to care for our employees, and we're going to care for our vendors. So always thinking about how we're going to do that. So when they come in, I have an expectation of my team that whether it's an employee swinging a hammer or in the office or a vendor that we encounter, that you shake their hand, you greet them, you do something that makes sure that they feel cared for. If you live that out over time, the reputation grows. And so what's happened is we have people call us now. The recruiting at that level isn't as heavy because we have a pretty consistent call of, are you hiring? We've heard about you guys. It's taken some time. It's taken some consistency of doing that, but it works.
That is amazing because for me, well, my world, finding handymen is really hard. Although we're starting to see we have seen a big influx where literally before I came in here, my scheduler said, "Okay, Chris, I'm officially at my capacity. I can't take another new guy." And that's right after the second interview came in today. And I said, "How about just one more?" That's where I got the comment. Go do your podcast.
So really, honestly, we've really nurtured that in the organization. And the other thing is we compensate our people for that. So if you are a crew lead and in your community, you bring in another crew, we pay you and we pay you very well. And we're talking about 4 figures, not inexpensive investment for you to bring teams, for you to bring people. When employees refer, there's a big bonus for that. It's staged based on how long the person's here and stay and all. But at the end of the day, you're going to, right now in this economy, with the way things are, for you to get the best people, you're going to have to spend money.
Yeah.
So do you want to spend it with your people who know your culture and believe in what you do and are on board and riding on that bus in the right seat, go in the right direction, right? Traction, right? You guys
Yep.
know the book Traction, EOS, right?
Yep. Gino Wickman.
Gino Wickman. Are you
Yep.
wanting to do
Absolutely.
that? Or do you want to go out and try your hand and roll the dice, spend the same amount of money, and then go through the potential that you get the right guy, but it's the wrong seat, or you get the right seat, but the wrong guy, or it's the wrong bus, right? It's right now it's expensive to do that. So we built a culture, we live that culture, we invest in that culture, we invest in our team. And as a result of that, we are reaping some of the reward of that.
It's
That
a long
doesn't-
play though. It's a long haul play, and it costs you money as an owner. You don't get to put as much in your pocket, so you've got to be
But it costs you money to constantly replace people too.
that. So my point is, yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
It's costing you money, but it's really not costing you money if you start to really look back on it. You may be lining your pockets, but you're taking the money and just taking out of right pocket, putting in your left pocket because it's going right out the door looking for other people.
Well, I think you have to also think about it a little differently, right? I mean, we have the conversation all the time about exit strategy out of the business. What do you want to do? I mean, we start with the end in mind, right? So, you want to sell the company. Well, what's the real value of the company if you're the only one driving the bus?
Right.
You're not getting the 10x, 6x, 4x to whatever. You're getting whatever you're getting because somebody's buying a job as far as they're concerned, right? Or are you doing it for different reasons? Do you want to put your employees in a position where they could purchase the company and do some kind of an ESOP? I mean, there's lots of different ways to do it. And Chris knows all about that stuff because he was in M&A for decades. But at the end of the day, you never will go wrong if you invest in your people and you invest in your business, keeping in mind the values of the company and what you're trying to establish. Because long term, whether we're here or we're not, the business is going to function. It's going to function well. It's going to serve people, whether I'm above ground or below ground, it's got to serve people. So if I just look at it like that, then I think I probably make better decisions and choices than I would maybe otherwise. That isn't the guarantee by any stretch. It's simply as the way that we've chosen to look at the business, right?
That's a great way to look at it. I'm going to go back to one other thing. There's two things. One is Alan gave me this point years ago, and I almost gave him credit for it once, and that's how to reward people.
Why start now?
So I'm not going to give this one.
Yeah.
But one of the things that was happening is my quality assurance manager, who is over all my guys, was getting really burned out. You could see it. I mean, he was just wearing on him. And so what I did was I texted his wife and said, Ron's coming home early today, and I want you guys to go out to dinner and make sure that you grab our corporate card out of his wallet and pay for dinner. And I did that for her to treat him. And he came back a new man because she said, see how much your company, and it wasn't, I was trying that, but I wanted to do something a little bit different than just say, hey, Ron, go take your wife out. Let her surprise him. Because I said, hey man, I can tell you're stressed, bro. Go, just go. I'll handle it. I got it. It's 2 hours left. I mean, I can't. How much can I screw up in 2 hours? Because
We can use that.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
Quite a
I
bit,
like that.
Chris.
I can actually in 2 hours. But by doing that, I'll give you guys one more. And this one came from Alan. And but I got to tell the story the way
But
I
you're
told
not going to let him share?
it. You want to share it?
No. You tell the story.
Because
How you stole such a great thing and then told me about it later, like it was your idea.
it was awesome. It was
Don't you
such a
feel
great-
betrayed, Alan?
Yeah.
Hey, look,
I
and
don't
he's
know.
been with me
It's-
for a year doing the
It's the
podcast.
Stockholm syndrome. That's exactly. That's right.
That's why I love having it. So what is the special sauce here? So at Christmas is a big time for all of us. It's a family time. Even if you don't believe in Christmas, it's just a time where everybody's feeling good about themselves. And so what I did was Alan gave me this idea, and I have 4 ladies in the office, and I pulled the first lady in who has the youngest kids. And I said, come in here. And she goes, oh, I'm in trouble. I'm like, yeah, you are. I said, here's the deal. I'm going to give you a $200, here it is, American Express gift card. You have to leave the office right now, and you have to go spend all $200 before you go home. And here's the caveat. You can't spend it on your kids. You can't spend it on your husband. It has to be for you. And I want to know what you bought. So let's make sure it's something that you would be appropriate for Chris. And so,
Is there anything off limits for Chris?
no, but I was just like, so she was sure. So, and I said, and you can't tell the other 3. So off she goes, and she takes off and she goes up. I told her the excuse to tell the ladies in the front that, one of her kids, this is a pretty easy story. One of her kids got hurt at school and she had to go pick them up.
So you told her to lie? I didn't give you part of it. That wasn't my idea.
That's why I said mine's even better.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So off she goes. And so the next day I called the next one in because I told them all sworn to secrecy, right? And I said, Deborah, my scheduler, who is amazing, had just lost her husband, and I'll cry if I say it too much. And I did the same thing to her. So you got to go. You got to buy something for you, not for your kids, not for your grandkids, not something to remember Rick, something that you'll remember for you. And so they did. They all four of them went out, took pictures of what they bought. And one bought sunglasses, one bought a piece of Waterford crystal, another one bought a whole bunch of outfits for herself because she only buys for her kids and her family. And it was one of the most special gifts I've ever given. And it was so cool. And because they loved it. And, they got out for half a day. And then when the last one went, I said, okay, we're all in on the story now. So now they were all able to share the story.
That's awesome.
It was so cool. But
It's
it
the
was
best
Alan's
200, but well, it wasn't my idea. It just came from a company I work for. One of the best leaders I ever worked for.
But I told Alan the story. I'm like, man, I had this great idea. Here's what I did. He goes, I'm the one who told you that. I'm like,
That's great.
shit, that's right.
Yeah.
That's great.
But just ways to reward people that builds your culture. And that's, I tell these stories and I don't want to hijack it, and I know we're coming up on our time. So
Time to ask your questions.
I think we're going to ask our questions, but can we just get them back one more time?
I probably so.
I think we can.
If
we
you
get
had
you
better,
back?
if you had
'Cause
better
I
beer,
wanna- I got
Yeah.
to. The next episode,
Garbage.
we've got to talk about this.
John, this beer was average. What do you think?
Yeah.
All right, I'll tell you what.
And John's
If you
waiting
guys
for
stay
a-
right here,
a
if
baby
you guys
to be
stay
born.
right here, I'm going to run out. I'm going out of the package store. I'm going to be coming back with a bunch of brown bags. I'm going to be getting shot, but I'm going to get them. I'm going to get you guys better beer. All right. I have 3 questions I ask everybody when coming in. And so I'll ask you guys these 3 questions. Will turn out to be 6 questions because of the 2 guys. So the first question I got for you, John, is what is the favorite feature of your home?
Oh, favorite feature around. Well, I just built a screen porch, and it is by far my favorite place to sit and just watch TV and relax. It's about 13 feet in the air, so we're up in the trees. It is amazing.
Awesome. So it's like your little tree fort.
It is. It is.
All right, Brian, what's the favorite feature of your house?
Well, my wife is listening, so I need to say her.
Right.
But after that, in the back, we did outdoor living. And so that whole back area, we've got a porch that flows out into an outdoor kitchen that runs right up into the swimming pool area. So it's the backyard area where we spend like 90% of our life out there.
Love that.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's fun. All right, John, what is a customer service pet peeve? You're out there and we're in the service business, right? We are. I mean, you guys talked about your 5-star experience. What is a customer service pet peeve of yours?
Oh, for sure. It's the line that they say, but you're the professional. There's no worse line to hear come from a customer than, but you're the professional. That is true. But contracting is, what it takes to learn to be a contractor is the same it takes to read the IRS logs, right? I mean, it's just big. It's a big library. It takes a lot. You can't know everything. And customers can be unrelenting about those things.
Solid. All right, Brian, what is a customer service pet peeve of yours?
Yeah, I think for me, it's I don't think that I really got the value, so I shouldn't have to pay X.
Yeah.
Right. So it's yeah, I know we owe you the last payment, but I don't know that it really was worth the XYZ. And so,
Overcoming that objective is interesting because I've used this line that I don't want to insult you, but what do you think is fair? Well, whatever you think is fair. Back to, well, you're the professional. Or what do you think is fair? I said, so I literally had this conversation with the guy. I don't want to insult you. So what do you think is fair? He goes, well, I said, so again, I don't want to insult you. And finally, I said, well, how about if I just do this at cost? He goes, well, I was thinking more than that. I said, okay, so I asked you, so I would not insult you. So you have a number. Just tell me what the number is, and I'll tell you if I can get there. I don't know. But don't make me play a game that I can't win. Because you have a number in your head. And if you try to make me figure that number out, I can't.
yeah. So
that-
one of the things that we've done is we've said, hey, listen, I don't have a crystal ball. Like I can't see what the future is. I can't tell you what this is or what that is. And I said, but listen, what I think is fair is actually what you put your name on the line for. So the 750 you owe me is what I think is fair.
Yeah, and nobody likes to hear that number. Nobody likes to hear that line. I know.
But here's the thing, right? You start with the end in mind. So if you're willing to do something for less, then you should do it for less. You should have done that on the front end. But if you're not, then you establish your price and you build your value around that, and then you deliver on that. And then you need to have substantial completion clauses and other things in
Right.
your terms and conditions that indicate how we handle that. So when we get in those situations, like listen, there's no contract who is perfect. None of us are born with a construction manual in our head, right? So even we make mistakes, right? So it's fine to have a conversation with someone about perceived value, but you're not going to ever get a consumer to believe that your idea of perceived value is their idea of perceived value. And so the conversation doesn't really go anywhere. And so it's really about conflict resolution and how we do conflict resolution. What do we do when things don't go well? And do we have a system in place and processes in place to manage conflict resolution? We have a really good conflict resolution model in the business that we exercise. And in most cases, we can help the customer and we can fix the issues so that we can get paid, right?
So for me in the handyman world, we do so many different things, and that's what makes my business not as focused as yours. And what I've trained my guys on is sometimes, well, first of all, you need to find out what their real issue is. And sometimes it's not an issue we can resolve. I can't help that you're in a miserable marriage. I can't help that you hate your job. I can't help the fact that you only had so much money and now you don't have that money. So sometimes we think it's just, well, we'll fix our quality and we'll give you a discount and we've solved your issue. And he says, no. And you're like, oh boy, now what? So it's hard to get that. And with that,
Too much talking, not enough.
hit it. All right, last one. Here we go. My favorite one.
Chris
and then we're
wasn't
gonna
going to
end
land that plane. Thanks. I appreciate it.
the- Wow.
Yeah. And that's after the last episode. I know
Right.
the ship
Wow.
never
All right.
docked.
All right, here we
was-
go.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Plane Landing.
Okay. So
All right, here we go. Now, you guys have been in the contracting world, but I want a DIY nightmare story. One where you guys had your hands on it and it was a DIY. I can't believe this crap's happening to me.
Walked on, to the customer's property. We've been doing the siding on their house.
By the way, this came out quick. I mean, this is fresh for John.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of those, you just never forget.
We're on our what, 60th episode? I think we have 60 of these.
That's right. And it was a single woman in their 50s. And as I was walking on the property, her 24-year-old son came storming at me, hands in the air, yelling cuss words, telling me that my guy stole from them. And, it went south quick. I was trying to figure all that out. And long story short, we exited. I diffused the situation, but it was in that state, right? We got through the job, but the odd thing was about 6 months later, I happened to see him at the gym, and that reminded me, this is 6 months later. They think I think that they think my guys have stole this stuff. He walks up and I see him like, oh, this isn't going to be good. And he walks up and he goes, hey man, we found the stuff. I said, what? He's like, yeah, we found it. It was just my mom had moved it and it was under like some blankets and stuff, but it was there. And so when I look back on that, like, almost getting into a fight with a guy in the middle of the lawn. By the way, it was in my neighborhood, so that wasn't
Even
that
better.
was it. Yeah.
Oh,
So
man, that blows.
yeah,
Oh,
stressful.
that's a good one.
Yeah.
All right,
So-
Brian.
So when you say DIY, you want me to talk about something I was doing that I turned sideways?
It's always more fun that way.
I'm sorry, I missed.
You know what?
Especially if
I
it
still like your
involves-
story. I like your take on it.
We're looking for fire or explosion.
Did you say that you had like 60?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's weak.
That's
You must be from Michigan.
Wow.
why I invited him on. I
That's
was
right.
waiting for it.
So,
Freaking,
so,
we went to get into sports with him.
so when I first started the business and I had one guy and we were kind of working together and we were doing a basement, and we decided as good framers and good painters that we could hang sheetrock. Well, at the time, 4x8 sheets was basically what Home Depot had, everybody had. Well, the basement was like 10 feet tall and they didn't have any 4x10. So we decided we're going to hang the 4x8. So, where are we going to be like, we're not thinking like, let's turn it on its side, and lay it right. And of course, back then I didn't have the manual for the gypsum, and there's a whole like sort of way you're supposed to do it. So we stuck them all up, we put the first one up high and then we drop the next one down low. And then the customer comes to us and goes, yeah, we decided on that. We don't really want flat paint on the walls. We want this satin finish and we want it to be brown. And I'm like, okay, no problem. So we get all the sheetrock work done. We hang all the trim, we caulk everything, we paint the walls brown. And I'm looking down the side, so the customer comes down and goes, that's a problem. I said, what are you talking about? She's like, no, like, you see all those spots? I'm like, what are you talking about? She looked down and it's like stripes every 2 feet, right? From where all the joints were. And I'm like, I can't fix that. She said, we skimmed the whole wall, spent all the profit on the job gone because we didn't know how to hang sheetrock, right? Next job, hired the sheetrock out.
Attaboy.
Attaboy.
That's awesome. You guys have brought it. This has been amazing. These guys are Outback Deck. How can they find you guys out there in the world?
Easiest way, Google us. No, www.outbackdeck.net.
And if you make the mistake and you put .com, we also own that. So it'll get you where you need to go. And then 678-262-4113. But you also can find us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, on House, on Nextdoor. You'll find us almost anywhere on social media. So, you can connect with us in any of those ways. We got people helping us in those areas. So if you connect with us through those media, we'll be able to communicate with you.
So if you're in Atlanta, you're looking for a deck, this is the place to go. If you're a business person, this is also the place to keep listening, because in Small Business Safari, we bring everybody in who can really talk about their business in a different way and bring you the gold nuggets that we're all looking for so we can keep going up that mountaintop of success. Until next time,
Cheers, fellas.
we're out of here.
Cheers, boys.
Cheers.
Let's get back on that deck. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Small Business Safari. Remember to keep that positive attitude, which will reflect in a higher altitude as you're out there making it happen in the wild world of small business ownership. Until next time, go make it a great day, Adventure Team.